Hey Deckers, Liam here. Diablo 4 is now really close to the public release and I've been blasting away through testing various characters during early access, and honestly I'm pretty blown away at just how impressive it looks and now runs on the Steam Deck. Installing it is really simple as well. I've covered two different ways in two previous videos, from the manual method to using the newer non-Steam launcher script. So if you're needing a primer on how to set up Battle.net for it, go and check out my previous videos. As for how it runs, it's pretty incredible actually. Even with some settings on medium, with the high resolution asset pack installed, it can still run at a mostly consistent locked 40 frames a second, which feels pretty fantastic overall. You definitely don't need that HD asset pack though, and installing it will take away another around 40GB of space. The question is it worth it? Well, the good news is you can modify your install at any point in the Battle.net launcher in the game's settings to try it out for yourself. Comparing it side by side with the HD asset pack and without it, in a lot of places there is hardly any difference to see. Some spots are slightly more defined on a bigger screen, but personally I've not been seeing any drastic difference to make it worth all that extra space. You really are having to look closely to see the extra definition with a tiny bit more brightness as well, but directly on the Steam Deck screen size and resolution together, you're really not getting much at all out of it unless you're staring closely with nothing moving around. And a lot of it does depend on the lighting and the environment that you're in at the time. Honestly, for Steam Deck, pretty much just skip over the HD asset pack in my opinion. Although if you're docking it to a bigger screen, having it there just increase the clarity that little bit, especially if you're going to then force a higher resolution, then it may be worthwhile locking the performance down a bit lower. Because performance can be an issue with the higher res asset pack, you'll notice a fair bit more stuttering overall, and lower performance during some of the bigger fights. For that reason again, I'll just recommend sticking with not installing them. Again though, it's very much a personal preference, it's not a big difference in visuals on the Steam Deck at all. As for my own settings on what I'm using, I'm choosing to lock it to 40 frames a second in-game because there are various parts that will give stutter when running around, and the frame rate does drop during the bigger, more intense fights. There are plenty of areas that will absolutely hit 60 frames a second and stay at 60 frames a second, but anyone claiming it will stay there consistently just hasn't played enough of it. Having it locked at 40 frames a second makes it for the most part just a lot more consistent through everything that I've seen of the game so far, while keeping it feeling incredibly responsive. There are still drops, but you'll see them no matter what settings you choose, and a 40 FPS lock makes the drops just far more smoother, less noticeable, and if you don't have the FPS counter up, you probably won't even notice them at all. Here's the actual settings I'm using, just as an example, with FSR2 set to quality and just a couple of bits tweaked down from the medium preset. You can slow down the video or pause it if you wish to copy the exact settings I'm using here. FSR2 on quality with the in-game sharpening up a bit actually gives it a pretty darn good picture quality. Blizzard did a great job on the FSR2 implementation here. An added bonus of turning on FSR2 is that it brings down the overall power use as well, so you will get more time with it. You'll get somewhere maybe around 2 hours on the battery with those settings, but battery life really depends on where you are in the game and what you're doing, as of course the more intense it is, the more the power draw will increase, but overall sticking with FSR2 quality seems like the best way. Now with a bit more footage of me just running around on those settings, we can see pretty clearly how good the experience is. And overall, apart from the nuisance of setting up Battle.net, which my previous guides can help you with, it feels like a game just made to be played on Steam Deck. It's pretty fantastic, and it's great to see another new release just running so stupidly well on Steam Deck. Just keep in mind you do need an active internet connection for it, as they're seemingly treating it like a live service game that will be updated for a long time. I am concerned though about what they're going to be doing with the in-game shop. For a full price game at about £60, it's clear they're going to keep adding to the in-game shop to try and get more money out of you. And in full price games, that never really sits right with me. That is about my only real complaint though, and I'm hoping I can continue just to ignore the in-game shop because the gameplay is just so ridiculously fun. My favourite character so far is definitely the druid that you've been seeing in the footage, because I love the transformations and attacks that it gives. It just looks so brutal. And smashing through everything around me is just so entertaining. From what I've seen of other critic reviews, the general consensus seems to show the vast majority of reviewers are loving it, and I can see why. Each character feels pretty great, with very different playstyles between them. On top of all the included content at release, there's just so much to play through. It's an easy game to get into as well, with easy to use controls and a pretty good intro to get you going. You don't even need to be great at making a character build either. If you're like me and you pick up everything you find and then just equip something to make numbers go up, you can pretty happily just smash your way through it. And I'm playing it on the slightly higher tier 2 difficulty mode without really any issues at all. Tier 2 feels like a pretty great balance between enemy difficulty and just general enjoyment. So far, I think this is actually probably one of the best releases of the year, and it's such a great fit on the Steam Deck. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in my next news video coming later this week. I've got plenty of Steam Deck news to go over. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.